In this video, I'm going to do a teardown on a Toshiba Libretto L5 laptop. I'm going to replace the spinning hard drive with a compact flash-based solid-state solution. And at the very end, I'm going to replace the built-in Wi-Fi card. First, let's start out with a little history and specs. The L series was first released in 2001. It's officially a Japan-only model. It's kind of the first major form factor redesign of the Libretto series. It's 10 inches, it's a lot bigger than any other future or past Libretto model. There were 4 major models, the L1, the L2, the L3, the L3 Adidas edition, and the L5. That's what this one is. They all featured a 10-inch TFT 1280 by 600 screen. Rather than the typical AMD or Intel processor, they had a Transmeta Caruso processor, which is x86 compatible. Basically, it's kind of running a virtual machine and emulates the x86 instruction set. It's lower powered, but it's a bit slow. The L1 through L3 had a 600 MHz processor, the L5 800. Storage, you could either get a 10 or 20 gigabyte hard drive. The L1 through the L3 had a 44-pin 2.5-inch drive. The L5 got a 1.8-inch 50-pin. The L5 comes with 256 megabytes of PC 133 memory built in. The L1 through L3 come with 128 megabytes of PC 100 memory built in. There's a socket for a micro DIMM 144 pin. Lets you add another 256 megabytes of RAM. L1 came with a FireWire port, but all the later models replaced that with a 100 megabit Ethernet port. For graphics, the L5 comes with an ATI Mobility M6, and all the earlier models came with an S3 Savage chipset. All models came with a pair of USB 1.0 ports, a dial-up modem, a PC card slot, and an SD card reader. There's a variant of the L5 that came with built-in B wireless, otherwise no other models ever came with Wi-Fi. To start, I'm checking out what's underneath these panels. Underneath this first one, it looks to be some kind of legal paperwork notices, I think related to the modem. And underneath this panel, we have the 144-pin micro DIMM. PC 133 in this case, the L5. And now it's time to remove the 6 screws holding the bottom on. These are all nicely labeled with the size in millimeters, so you can't really mix them up. And now to remove the plastic trim above the keyboard, so the keyboard can be removed. There's basically 2 pegs on each side that kind of hook in, so you want to lift it up from the middle or one of the sides. Pull it up enough to pull those pegs out. There are two connectors holding on the keyboard. There's the small one on the left for the trackpad. You just kind of lift the connector up, and then for the keyboard, you push those hooks towards the screen to release the cable. And next, the mouse buttons. Pull these clips towards you and slide the cable out. And next, the two cables coming from the screen. These don't have any kind of clips. Next, there are three screws holding the top case to the bottom case. These are the same size screws as what's holding the hard drive bracket. They're all interchangeable. And next, I'm removing the CMOS battery. I'll have some more details on this when I put the new one in. And next, I'm going to remove the Wi-Fi antennas. These are kind of recessed through some holes in this metal plate. In the end, I found it was easiest to use two plastic pry tools coming from each side. I want to risk ripping the wire off the connectors. Next, we need to remove this ribbon cable running over the top of the hard drive bay. Just slide the connectors towards the edge of the machine. The computer will run without this connected. I know it powers at least the USB ports. And then remove the power jack, which is routed through the hard drive caddy. Next, we're going to remove the 3 screws holding in the hard drive caddy. Now, since this is an L5, it has a 1.8 inch 50-pin hard drive that's mounted more horizontally. The L1 through the L3 have a 2.5 inch 44-pin hard drive mounted vertically. I think this is to make space for that mini PCI Wi-Fi card below the drive. And here's the 50-pin compact flash to 1.8 inch IDE adapter I'm going to be using. Make some small modifications to it. The master slave jumper pins on the bottom kind of stick out a ways, so I'm trimming them off, especially since it's going to kind of sit on top of a ribbon cable. Don't want it to risk scratching or puncturing it. And the other modification I need to make is there's 2 alignment pegs on the ribbon cable on the computer. And there's these little plastic wings on the adapter, and they kind of collide with each other. They don't let you plug in the cable fully, so I need to trim them off. So just to help keep the drive in place, I'm going to put a little double-sided tape on the bottom of the adapter and just do it in the corner so it doesn't make contact with the ribbon cable. And now to get everything connected, these are a little bit more confusing than the standard 44-pin 2.5-inch drive that the early models used. These 50 pins, there's a circle alignment peg and an oval alignment peg. Pin 1 is on the circle peg side, but there are fewer pins on the ribbon than there are on the connector. So pin 1 is actually 4 rows in. And now to screw the hard drive caddy back down, you'll use 3 screws. Reminder that the screw in the lower left, that comes through the top of the keyboard deck. At the end of the video, I also come back and replace the Wi-Fi card. In that case, I couldn't use the metal caddy anymore. At least with my card, the antennas wouldn't really line up anymore with the holes in the bracket. And next I'm going to replace the CMOS battery. Here's the original battery. It's a 3-volt battery. And here's my replacement battery. It's a little bit bigger. The wire's a little bit longer. The connector on it is a little bit different than any of the other Libretto models I've worked on. And here's our first boot. It's complaining about a bad CMOS checksum since we replaced the battery. F1 to go back to defaults. And then it tries to boot from the hard drive, which doesn't have an operating system. So now I'm holding F12 to force the boot menu. You can boot from the internal hard drive, USB CD-ROM, floppy drive, looks like some kind of other PC or a PC card. I tried getting into the actual BIOS menu by hitting F1, which works on all the other Libretto models, but this doesn't seem to have any kind of BIOS menu to it. So now I'm going to talk about installing an operating system. The L1 and L2, they originally came with Windows Millennium Edition. The L3 came with Windows 2000, and then the L5, Windows XP. You can find factory recovery media for the L1 and L2 on archive.org, but I wasn't able to find the Windows XP recovery media for my L5. For older operating systems like Windows 98, Windows Millennium Edition, you can use something like Rufus to format your compact flash card as a bootable drive, then copy on the contents of your installation CD onto the drive, install it directly like that. But I don't think that's possible with Windows XP. But I was able to boot from a modern USB-powered DVD reader. I think that's something that's only possible on the L5. For earlier versions, you're going to need to use a PC card CD-ROM drive. Of course, if you need to boot off a floppy drive boot disk at the same time, get a little messy, but I believe any model can boot off a USB floppy drive. And aside, the background you see here is official Libretto L series wallpaper. I pulled it from the L1 factory image, but it looks like they use the same images throughout. I see this image in the L5 marketing material. Put a link on archive.org. And a final note related to Windows XP. I've mentioned this in some of my other videos, but I'll recap it again here. Starting with Windows XP, it won't let you put your page file onto a drive if it has a removable bit set. That's so you can't pull the drive out with your page file in the middle of your Windows session, which would cause things to crash. Now, most standard commercial compact flash cards will have this bit set and you can't really change it. Most industrial compact flash cards don't have this removable bit set, but you can use most standard commercial flash cards if you use a special driver. That'll trick Windows into thinking it's a standard fixed disk that it can put your page file on. And to do that, come here, you need to install and modify this Hitachi microdrive filter. So you download this driver, the 32-bit driver. You kind of get the device ID of your flash card. You modify the Hitachi driver to stick your ID into it, replacing theirs. And then you force Windows to replace the existing driver with this new driver. And after I did that and rebooted, then when I went and checked the device manager, now instead of saying it was removable drive, it now said it was just a regular drive, fixed disk, and it had stuck the page file there automatically. Now in this final section, I decided to come back in and replace the factory Wi-Fi card with this Intel 2915 ABG. This is going to cause some problems because you can see the antennas on the Intel card are different from the original Toshiba card. There's cutouts in the metal bracket, so you're not really going to be able to hook the antennas back up when this cage is on. Now the reason I'm doing this upgrade is because the original card is only Wi-Fi B and only supports WEP security encryption, which pretty much no modern router is going to support. So I'm going with this Intel card because it's the latest mini PCI card that Intel offered. It supports A, B, and G, and most importantly supports WPA, so I'm able to connect it to my regular router. Getting the original card out was pretty simple. There's just a couple of clips on either side, kind of like a SIM slot. Getting the new card in was a little trickier. It's easier if you can come at a little bit of an angle. So I just pulled out 2 screws out of this little circuit board that's sitting over the top of the slot to give me a little bit more clearance. So I just kind of lifted it up a little bit. And the final thing to sort out is where to put the clock battery, since the original hard drive bracket had a little holder for the battery, and now we don't have that anymore. So I'm kind of playing around with where to put it, either up above the compact flash card or on top of the wireless card. In the end, I decided to kind of tuck it in here underneath the compact flash card. Put a little double-sided tape on it just to keep it from moving around, but it maybe would have been a little easier just taping it down to the top of the Wi-Fi card. Now I'm putting in 2 of the original screws that used to hold in the hard drive caddy, since they also hold the circuit board down to the base. Skipping the one in the upper right by the power connector, since it doesn't do anything anymore. And a final note for this video, Intel deleted all the drivers for their older hardware off their website. Took me a little bit of looking around to find something that worked. I ended up settling on version 11.1.0.5. That's what worked for my card. Just do a search and just be careful of the shady driver download sites. But otherwise, that's it. Thanks for watching.